so we're going to do Torah portion today, because I think the Torah portion is important. I just felt like talking about it a little bit. So turn, if you will, to Exodus chapter 1. Who's seen the movie? 10 Commandments? Charlton Heston?
We've seen it more than 20 times.
Nice.
That was in the old movie days, right? When they had to have the spectacles and the dances and all the costumes and everything. You know, I did not see everybody's hand raised. Are there people here who haven't seen the 10 Commandments? Wow, you guys should get that movie.
Let's have a movie night.
I mean, there's some stuff in it that's kind of, but mostly it's pretty good.
Cool.
So then you guys don't get the joke when we read about the burning bush. It's Moses. Because that's how it is in the movie. That's what he says. All right. This Torah portion, we're starting the book of Exodus, and it is called Shemoth, which means names. So we're in Exodus chapter 1. And I was reading about this, about Torah portions and things, and how different people do them, and I'm always struggling for what's the best way for us to do things. And I actually like feedback, so you can give me feedback in private or whatever. But I think we should start getting in the habit as a group of reading ahead. And I'll tell you at the end of today what the next Torah portion is. But like, take it for homework and read it and take notes and have questions ready, or do your own research as something you want to share or something like that. So that when we're reading it together on Shabbat, it's kind of like, yep, I read that this week and I know where we're going. And it also helps your brain, it forms a framework by reading it right beforehand, and then when we talk about it, it's like, oh, yeah, that goes here. Oh, okay, that connects like that. Or, no, that's not right. It goes like this, and then we all learn, kind of thing. All right. So we're in Exodus. Oh, I can wear these glasses. See, I'm out of habit. Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob. What did Jacob's name change to?
Israel.
Israel. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan and Naphtali. Gad and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And so 70 people via Jacob, Israel. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. So we just spent the last Torah portion reading all, and the couple before that, reading all about Joseph getting sold into slavery, going to Egypt, doing all this. And it's like, it's a big, in-depth, deep story. And then we get to here, and it's like, okay, let's just get through all that. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. All right, so everything we just read for the last couple of weeks, that's done. Right? They're all dead. So we start like kind of phase 2, turn the page. All the children of Israel were fruitful, and they increased abundantly, and they multiplied, and they waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now remember, they're all getting along great with the Egyptians, right? I mean, Joseph was the man, and well, these Israelites, they had lots of babies, and they do well. Verse 8. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. So a new sheriff in town, a new king of Egypt, and he didn't even know Joseph. So all the goodness that Joseph brought, and that the work that he did, that we talked about this somewhere recently, brought honor unto his family name, right? They liked Israel because of Joseph. This new guy doesn't know them. And it's interesting to me that whenever there's a change in leadership in anything, could be at work, you get a new supervisor or whatever. And I know those of us who've been in the military know you get a new commander about every year or two, depending. It's like, ooh, it could be an ocean change depending on who the new boss is. And so there's a new boss in Egypt, new king, and he didn't know Joseph. And he said unto his people, and he's talking, when it says his people, he's not talking about the Israelites, he's talking about the Egyptians. He said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. There's more Israelites than Egyptians in the land. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. So this new guy doesn't like Israel. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. And so overnight, these guys go from being, it's a pretty good life here in Egypt, we're being fruitful, we're multiplying, we're living life, to their slaves. Overnight, that fast. How fast is it turning in this country from certain types of people who refuse to do something are becoming the bad guys? Right? I mean, it can happen fast. And I think that's a lesson right there. Your fortunes, if you will, your earthly fortunes can change like that. And in here they change with just a new ruler coming in, and they go from la 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 to slaves. And it's hard slaves. It's hard slave work. But they're still Yah's people. And he has a plan, and we're going to read about that plan today. But the more they afflicted them, because why are they afflicting them? They want them to reduce in population, right? So they're treating them bad. It's kind of like, if you think about it, the Holocaust. It's like put all these Jews in the camps, work them to death, and then there's less Jews, right? They're doing something useful, and then let them die there, and there'll be less Jews. That was kind of like the plan, right? Well, the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor. Do you guys have a different hardship? It was tough. It was slave labor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. And that's why we eat what we eat at Passover, right there, right? We come back to that during Passover. Bitter herbs and that kind of thing. All manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. Everything they did was hard. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you do the office of the midwife of the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, meaning having birth, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. So what's that called?
Infanticide.
Infanticide, right? Kill the newborn babies. There are, I don't know if it's legal yet, but they're trying to make it legal. They call it a post-birth abortion. Well, if that baby is born, you can't abort it. You can kill it. But if it's born, it's this. It's infanticide is what's happening. It's already a breathing, living outside there. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You can't argue that once this baby is born and it's sitting there going, wah, that's alive. That's not a post-birth abortion. That's infanticide, and that's what's happening here. And, well, what he wants them to do, he says, kill all the male children. But the midwives feared Elohim, and they did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but they saved the men children alive. So these women feared Yah more than they feared Pharaoh. Did they have any reason to fear Pharaoh? Oh, heck yeah. Right? He's Pharaoh for their physical life, but they feared Yah more, and they did the right thing. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and he said unto him, why have you done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? Didn't you hear what I told you before? I added that part. And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively. And they delivered before the midwives come in unto them. Therefore Elohim dealt with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. So obedience brings blessings, and Elohim is blessing these women for the work they did. Or in this case, didn't do. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he made them houses. Now, does it say something different in scriptures?
Yeah,
Households.
he provided households for them.
that doesn't mean he bought them a house. It means they became great people. They prospered. They became like the house of whatever that woman's name is, Pua. And so they were successful because of this. And so they were a great household. Where am I? There we are. 22. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter shall save alive. 2. So now you got to throw the newborn babies into the water. And then went a man of the house of Levi, and he took a wife, a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived, and she bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. She did not throw him in the river and kill him. And when she could no longer hide him, he's 3 months old, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and she daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and laid it in the flags, or in the reeds by the river's bank. And so she builds this little basket, if you will. It has a covering on it. We're going to see that here in a minute. And she sets it in the reeds by the bank of the river with her son in it. And his sister, the boy's sister, stood afar off. Anybody remember what her name is? Miriam. She stood afar off to know what would be done with him. So she's like in a reconnaissance position overlooking these reeds, and she's watching to see what happens to her little brother. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. Now we know where this is going, right? She's going to save him. She's going to raise him. He's going to become fairly mighty in Egypt because Pharaoh's daughter kind of takes him on as a child. But think about this for a second. It's kind of an interesting both sides of the coin. You've got Pharaoh saying, kill all the male Hebrews, all the male Israelites. Well, this is his daughter. She comes from his house. Nominally, she's obedient to her father, right? But she's not. And so it shows, I think, that you can't blame your parents for your life as an adult. I tell people, once you're 18, get over it. You didn't have a good life or you had a great life. You can ruin that too. Once you become an adult, you get to make your own adult decisions. And she made a decision. She could have easily said, well, there's nothing I could do. Dad, his house, I'm the princess, we have to do these things. But she didn't. She decided she's going to take care of Moses. And then we know where that goes from here. I hope we do. It's an old story. This is one of the Hebrews' children. Here's the other thing. She knows who he is. Right? She knows he's a Hebrew. She knows he's an Israelite who's supposed to be killed. And yet his weeping touches some spot in her. The baby's crying. She's like, oh, a baby. And, she picks him up. Then said his sister, remember Miriam, who was sitting there watching the reeds, to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And she means a woman who's in milk who can do a baby. Now, who's she talking about?
Her mom.
Her mom, right? His mom, right? See, but
Nice.
she's acting like, I could probably find somebody who could nurse this baby for you, because clearly you can't nurse this little baby. Pharaoh's daughter. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went, and she called the child's mother. Moses' mom. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And so here she is. She puts him in a basket. She puts him in the reeds. Pharaoh's daughter gets it. And then she says, here, take care of this baby. And oh, by the way, I'll pay you to do it. It'll be our little secret on the down low. So Moshe is still at home now. That's kind of cool if you think about it, how Father's kind of orchestrating that. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, I guess we can presume after he was weaned, and he became her son. And she called his name Moshe. And she said, because I drew him out of the water. And it came to pass in those days when Moshe was grown, so now we just went from like 2 years old to he's a man now. When he was grown, he went out unto his brethren, And he looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. Now this interests me too. He knows he's a Hebrew Israelite. Because he's his brethren. He sees his brethren being beaten up by an Egyptian. And yet he's raised in the household of Pharaoh, the king of all Egyptians. He's not being treated badly. He's not working a burden. Did Pharaoh know he was an Israelite? His daughter certainly does. He does. I just think it's interesting. So he went out and he sees an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked, I like this, he looked this way and that way. And when he saw that there was no man, no one's around, he slew the Egyptian and he hid him in the sand. So he killed an Egyptian who was basically in the process of killing a Hebrew slave, and then he hid him in the sand because nobody was there to see. But it's interesting that he looked to make sure no one could see him do that. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. So 2 guys are in a fight. And he said to them that did the wrong. So there's one guy that's clearly in the wrong here. I love this King James English. Wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? Dear sir. But he's like, hey, why are you kicking this guy's butt? What are you doing? You know, come on, cut it out. And he said, this is the guy who he's addressing, the guy who's beating up the other guy. Who made you a prince and judge over us? Do you intendest thou to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Ooh. See, Moses didn't think anybody knew he killed that Egyptian. Somebody saw him. And clearly, if it wasn't this guy who saw him, people are talking. And that's probably what's happening. It's like, whoa, did you see him kill that Egyptian? Well, the word's getting around. This guy's still a jerk. And he goes, what are you going to do, kill me like you killed the Egyptian? That's an implied threat. I'm going to tell on you, right? You know, people know what you did. And Moshe feared, and he said, surely this thing is known. And now when Pharaoh heard this thing, so that word's getting around. When Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moshe. But Moshe fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. So a lot happens there. I told you I was thinking, does Pharaoh know that he's a Hebrew? I think he probably did. And I think Pharaoh was probably just, fine, my daughter really wants this, my little girl, it's her little project, her little pet, you know, whatever, fine. But as soon as he's got a reason to get rid of Moses, it's like, oh, that's it, man. He went too far. I'm going to kill him. And I can be rid of this guy. And so Moshe takes off and he goes to the land of Midian. So he runs away. He runs away from Pharaoh's realm. And he sits down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water. And they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And so the way that worked is you'd lower a bucket down in the well on a rope, and then you'd bring the bucket up, and then there's these troughs there, and they'd pour the water into the troughs, and they'd put it back down in the hole, and they'd bring up more. And the other day I went down to check on our goats, and they were out of water. And so I had to get a bucket and walk down to the creek. This is women's work. Why am I doing this? I walked down to the creek, I filled up the bucket, I walked all the way back up to where the goats were, I poured it in their thing, it wasn't enough, I went down, I got more water out of the creek, I walked up, I poured it in, and I was thinking about this. Because that's what these daughters are doing. Now there's a flocks, it says flocks, so they have a lot of goats that follow them around, and so they have to pull this up, and if you think about it, it's girls doing this. Girls aren't as strong as men. And so it's a bucket of a size that a girl can put down in the well, fill up with water, and then pull all the way back up repeatedly. So it's not a 5-gallon bucket, right, that they're pulling up. But you got a lot of goats that you got to water. So you have to repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. Keep doing this over and over and over. And it takes time to do all these goats. And so that's what they're doing. Verse 17, and the shepherds came and they drove them away. The reason the shepherds drove them away is because there's probably only one well in the whole area, and the shepherds have their work to do, and they want to water their goats, and these little girls can get the heck out of my way. And no, I'm serious. And, you know, they can water their goats when we're done. And they're like, hey, Get out of here, little girl. Well, Moshe stood up and he helped them water. It's just, look at that. It says, they chased them away and Moses stood up and helped them water the flock. There's a whole bunch that went on in there because it's shepherds. So it's plural. So it's a group of dudes who tell these girls to run away. And one dude stands up and says, no, I think they're going to water their flocks now. I think Moshe was probably an intimidating guy. I've said before in the past, and people call me on it on YouTube land, he had anger issues too. I mean, he really did. I think he was a formidable man. And so he stood up and he helps them water the flock. And when they came to, now this is interesting, we'll get to it, to Reuel. What's it say in Scriptures? 18, verse 18.
Reuel.
Their father, he said, how come you're home so early? It usually takes you guys X amount of time to water all those goats, and look at you back so early. You know that it's important you water those goats. And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. So what's Moshe look like?
A prince of Egypt.
He looks like an Egyptian. He probably shaved his head like Egyptians did, and did they shave their eyebrows too? I think they
shaved
did.
their whole body and they drew on
They
their
drew those
eyes
things, and so he was raised in the house of Pharaoh, so he's still got the culture of Pharaoh. He doesn't have Israelite culture, even though he ran away. And so they don't know. They just look at what he looks like. It's like, yep, clearly he's an Egyptian. And so that's what they tell their dad. An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew water enough for us, and he watered the flock. He did all the work. And he said unto his daughters, and where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him that he may eat bread. It's like, hey, he did a good turn. Bring him in. I want to meet this fella. Besides, I've got $7. Right? And you say he's an Egyptian. The Egyptians are doing pretty good in this world. Let's go meet this fella. And Moshe was content to dwell with the man. And he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. And so, again, there's time there, right? That wasn't just like, hey, have some food. You want to marry my daughter? I mean, it wasn't that fast, but so this happens. And so now they're married. And she bare him a son, and he called his name Gershom. For he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. So Gershom, is firstborn of Moshe. It's important for later. And it came to pass in the process of time that the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh, he died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto Elohim by reason of the bondage. And Elohim heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And Elohim looked upon the children of Israel, and Elohim had respect unto them. So the one Pharaoh died, they get another Pharaoh, but the Israelites' life does not improve, right? And they're crying unto the Father. The Father hears the prayers of the afflicted. Excuse me. You know, Yeshua talks over and over and over again about the widows and the orphans and the poor, right? And helping them out. And the reason why is because they have no one else to help them out. And he hears the prayers of those people, which is why we are encouraged to help those people when we can. The poor, the widows, and the orphans. And these are the oppressed. 3. Now Moshe kept the flock of, check this out, Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. So here he's called Jethro, and back there in verse 18 he's called Reuel. Right? I just thought that was interesting. The priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of Elohim, even to Horeb. Horeb is an interesting place. Horeb is where the burning bush is. That's at Horeb. We're going to get to that point here. Horeb is where, do you remember when Moshe goes up onto the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments and Aaron leads the people to make the golden calf? And then they come down and, you know, bad things happen. And then at that point, that's all at Horeb, right there. That's all happening at Horeb. So this is where Moshe finds himself right now. And also Horeb is where Elijah goes, and he's in the cave, and it's where the still small voice, you know, he goes out, he hears an earthquake, and he doesn't hear God, and there's a big storm, and he doesn't hear God, and then he goes out, and in a still small voice. That cave was in Horeb too. So it's kind of an important place.
Mm.
And so this is where he goes to the mountain, even there. And an angel, so he's with the flock, because you have to move the flock around. How many people here have flocks? They eat a lot, don't they? And if you don't, they didn't have hay. They couldn't go down to the local co-op and get a pickup truck full of hay. They had to move the critters to where the food was. And if you keep it in one place too long, they eat it all. You have to move somewhere else. So he's moved to Horeb. And it's just a regular thing for him. It's nothing special. He's just like, all right, I'm back over here in this place feeding them. Probably sleep out with them and that kind of thing at night. And an angel of Yahweh appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. So what's he looking at? It says he sees a bright light fire coming out of a bush, but the bush is on fire, but it's not really on fire. What's he looking at?
Yeshua.
Angel.
It's an angel. It's probably Yeshua, but it's the Shekinah glory is what it is. It's just like, whoa, whoa, and he sees this huge bright light, and so he goes to check it out. And Moshe said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. I got to go check this out. And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, so it's like, can you see the light? Have you seen the light? I can see the light. You know, that little call and response thing? It's like, or isn't there a song about, I saw the light?
Mm-hmm.
I saw the light, I saw the light, no more darkness. Well, he sees the light. But Elohim, Yahweh, waits until he turns towards the light to go see it. See, he could have run away from the light. He could have run to darkness, metaphorically speaking. But instead he says, I'm going to go see the light. And Elohim called him out of the midst of the bush and said, and here's the thing so many of you aren't going to get. Moses, because that's how it is in the movie. And he said, here am I. And he said, draw not nigh hither. Boy, that is old King James English. Hey, don't come any closer. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet. Take your shoes off. For the place wherein thou standest is holy ground. Who's heard that bluegrass song? Take your shoes off, Moses. Moses, you're standing on holy ground. That's a good bluegrass song. Which is interesting because in Mormonism and LDS, when Joseph Smith is in the presence of God, two angels, he doesn't take his shoes off or anything. It's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you're on holy ground, man. Get your shoes off. Moreover, he said, I am the Elohim of your father, the God of the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob. And Moshe hid his face, and he was afraid to look upon Elohim. And Yahweh said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. Now here's the interesting thing too. Israel is Yah's people, right? He hears their cries of all the hardship they're going through and all the bad things they're going through. They're Yah's people. Are they going through hardship?
Yes.
They're going through hardship. Is it terrible affliction that they're going through? It's terrible affliction. And they're Yah's people. And he hears it. It's not like he just heard it and he's just now deciding to do something about it since he just heard it. He's letting this go on. Just because we're Yah's people doesn't mean we're going to have a light of sunshine and daisies and honey and, you know, all that goodness all the time. Yes, obedience does bring blessings, but it also doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to experience bad things. Bad stuff happens. So he said, I've seen it in their sorrows. Verse 8, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land and a large, unto a good land and large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. That's good, right? You're not going to be slaves. You're my people. I'm saving you. I'm bringing you out. I'm going to give you your own land, a large land. Lots of space for you. It's flowing with milk and honey. Woohoo! Now look what he says. Unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Wait a minute. Those are Nephilim. Those are giants. Do you see how it's different? It's like your own land, a huge land, flowing with milk and honey. I'm going to bring you to it. It's the land of all those huge people that are like cannibals and eat people and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I never picked up on that till this week when I was reading that. It's like a two thing. Of course that's where the giants are. It's the land flowing with milk and honey. They get to live where they want to live. They're big and powerful and mean. Remember when they spy out the land and it's like, oh, you don't want to go there, man. There's giants. Oof. Well, they're there because it's the best land. And that's what Yah said he's going to give them. And yes, it happens right now to be the land of these people. We read Joshua not that long ago where they go in and actually conquer that land. And again, yes, they were given the promised land by Yah. But then they had to earn it, right? And they had to slay the giants. So I just thought that was interesting. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come unto me, and I have seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. Come now therefore, I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. So here's Moshe. He killed an Egyptian who was oppressing his people, and then he had to run away for it. Now he's just doing his little shepherd thing, and he sees this light, and he approaches the light, and the father tells him, hey, I've heard all the bad things that are going on with the people, and I'm going to save you. Cool. And I'm going to give you this big present. Cool. It's full of giants. And oh, by the way, you're the one that's going to go tell Pharaoh. What? What? I mean, that's what he's thinking, right? He's like, going to the land of giants is one thing. Now you want me to go to the guy who tried to kill me? Because I don't think he probably does. He might know that guy's dead, but whatever. Moshe says unto Elohim, who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? Mitzrayim. And he said, certainly I will, oh, this is Yah speaking. And he said, certainly I will be with you, and this shall be a token unto thee. People out of Egypt, ye shall serve Elohim on this mountain, Mount Horeb. And Moshe said unto Elohim, behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them that the Elohim of your fathers has sent me unto you, they shall say unto me, what is his name? And what shall I say unto them? If you've ever dealt with Eastern cultures, the Middle East, Asians, this is really not just what he said it was, what Moshe is saying it is. It's really like, well, who are you? What's your name if you're sending me on this task? But that's too direct of a question. What's your name? Who are you? Again, what's your name? So instead he goes, well, the people are going to ask me what your name is, and what shall I tell them? And what he's saying there is, what's your name? Who are you that's sending me on this journey? And Elohim said unto Moshe, it says in English, I am that I am. In Hebrew, it's Aya Asher Aya. What's it say in scriptures?
I am, which I am.
I am what I am,
Which I am.
which I am. I am that I am, and that's all that I am. Anybody ever see Popeye? There's a lot of interesting things in Popeye, the old Popeye. I am that I am, Aya Asher Aya. And he said, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. And Elohim said moreover unto Moshe, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, Elohim of Abraham, Elohim of Isaac, and Elohim of Jacob, has sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together, and say unto them, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, appeared unto me, saying, I have surely visited you, and have seen that which is done to you in Egypt. And, verse 17, I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt, unto the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall hearken to thy voice, and thou shalt come, thou and the elders of Israel, unto the king of Egypt, and ye shall say unto him, Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us, and now let us go, we beseech thee, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Elohim, to Yahweh our Elohim. I'm a product of my generation. There used to be this Southern rock song that was talking about some guy getting ready to get in a fight in a bar. And he says, give me 3 steps, give me 3 steps, give me 3 steps, mister. And it's basically like, just give me 3 steps and I'm gone, right? You won't see me anymore. Well, Yah said, I'm going to bring you out of bondage, out of the land of Mitzrayim, and take you here to the land of milk and honey. Go tell him you just want to go out and sacrifice and worship 3 days' journey. Because once you get out 3 days, you can run, right? I mean, that's what's going on there too. And I am sure that the king of Egypt, verse 19, will not let you go, no, not by a mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass that when you go, you shall not go empty. But every woman shall not, it says in King James borrow, but I've got ask written there. What do you guys have in? Ask of her neighbor, and of her that sojourneth in her house, jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And ye shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Egyptians. Which isn't how we use the word spoil today. It means you're going to deal harshly with them, rob them. Plunder, that's better. This is not the time for that sermon, but there's a whole chunk of us, people who believe like us, that talk about the second Exodus. We're in the first Exodus here, getting ready to see that happen, and plundering the Egyptians, and how when we leave on the second Exodus, we're going to get, the Escalade and all the jewelry and all the fine stuff, and we're just going to walk merrily on our way to the second Exodus. And I tell you, psychologically, what's going on there, I am convinced, is that these people have replaced their former belief in the rapture into the second Exodus that they think is going to be sweetness and light. And it's not going to be. But in this case, yeah, when they left, they got all this gold and jewelry and stuff. It's going to happen. Yah said it's going to happen, and we'll read about it later. It's going to happen. But really, what was the purpose of getting all that gold and silver? Y'all know? To build the temple and all the things that were in it. It's like they took that and melted it down and made stuff with it for the glory of Yah, not to enrich them, even though it doesn't look like that here. Chapter 4. And Moshe answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, Yahweh has not appeared unto you. That's what you say. You say God said that. I'm a slave, man. They're beating me up. And Yahweh said unto him, what is that in thine hand? And he said, a rod. I really want to do a word study. Maybe one of you all will be more motivated to do it. The Hebrew word for rod is the same word they use for tribe. For tribe. Like the tribes of Israel. There has to be some magic, some goodness there. Rod, tribe. Anyway. What's that in your hand? He goes, a rod. And he said, cast it on the ground. And so he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moshe fled from before it. Woo! And Yahweh said unto Moshe, put forth thy hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and he caught it. And it became a rod in his hand. That they may believe that Yahweh Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, Elohim of Jacob, has appeared unto thee. And Yahweh said furthermore unto him, put now thy hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he pulled it out, behold, the hand was leprous as snow. I have heard people preach on this, that this proves that Moses was black. It's like, please. Because, his hand was white like snow, and it stood out. If the Father suddenly made my hand the color of that table, would it look weird? Yeah. It would look weird, right? It would be white as snow. White is white. White as snow is white as snow. You could be a tan person and your hand. Has anybody seen anybody with bad burns?
Mhm.
Like really bad burns, and it turns their skin white, right? No matter what color they are, black, white, yellow, green, brown, turns their hands white. Well, this is like fruit, fruit. So he says, when you show people that, they'll believe you. And he said, and put thy hand into thy bosom again. And when he put his hand in his bosom again and plucked it out of his bosom, behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. So it looked the same. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe also these two signs, neither hearken unto thy voice, that thou shalt take of the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry land, and the water which shall take us out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land. And Moshe said unto Yahweh, O my Yahweh. Actually, I have a different thing there. What did he say there? Do you guys have something different?
Says, oh Yahweh.
O Yahweh, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. So Moshe is not good at public speaking. Plus he's afraid, right? He's nervous. He doesn't, he's worried. He tried, well, how are they going to believe me? I need to know your name. Well, how are they going to believe me? They're going to say I was lying. So then everything he says, the Father helps him out, right? It's like, well, no, here you can do these signs. And it's like, well, then he throws up another one. It's like, come on, Moshe, step up, buddy. But he's like, hey, I don't speak well. I'm slow of speech. And Yah said unto him, who made man's mouth? Or who makes the dumb, or the deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have not I, Yahweh? Now therefore go, and I will be thy mouth, teach thee what thou shalt say. And he said, O my Yahweh, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou wilt send. Basically what he's saying is pick another person. How's y'all going to take that? He's not happy about that. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Moshe, and he said, is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well, and also, behold, he comes forth to meet thee. And when he sees thee, he will be glad in his heart. And thou shalt speak unto him, and put words in his mouth, and I will be with thy mouth and with his mouth, and will teach you what ye shall do. And he shall be thy spokesman unto the people, and he shall be even as he shall be to thee instead of a mouth, and thou shalt be to him instead of Elohim. And thou shalt take this rod in thy hand, wherewith thou shalt do all signs. So basically he said, fine, you're going to tell Aaron what to say. Aaron's going to say it. He's going to be your mouth. I'm going to be your God. You're going to tell Aaron what to say. So in that way, you're kind of like me to him. Does that make sense? I'm going to use Aaron to speak for you, but you keep the rod. And Moshe went and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said unto him, let me go, I pray thee, to return unto my brethren which are in Egypt, to see whether they be yet alive. And Jethro said to Moses, go in peace. So see, Moshe was under Jethro's house. He was under his rule. He married his daughter. He's herding his goats. And so he had to ask permission to leave. And he's like, yep, go ahead, go in peace. And Yahweh said unto Moshe in Midian, go, return to Egypt, for all the men are dead which sought thy life. Everyone who was after you before is dead. And Moshe took his wife and his sons, and he set them upon an ass, a donkey, and he returned to the land of Mitzrayim, and Moshe took the rod of God, the rod of Elohim, in his hand. Now his sons, we know the first one's name is Gershom, right? Because we read that. That's his firstborn. And his second one? I've got it here in bad writing. Eli, hold on, let me look. 20. Oh, Eliezer. Okay. So that's his sons. Now the fact that he puts them on this donkey while he's going, that means they're very young, right? I mean, he's got two boys on one donkey, and he's going with his wife, and he's taking off. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, when you go to return into Egypt, see that thou do all these wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thy hand. So do what I told you to do, but check it out. Listen up. I will harden his heart, and he shall not let the people go. So he's kind of letting Moses know, don't get discouraged. This is all a plan. You're going to go do this stuff that I told you to do, but I'm going to harden his heart. That's a key point there too. It's not just Pharaoh on his own. And he's not going to let you go. But don't worry, it's all thought out. We'll get to why that is later. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. Now this is really interesting right here. And we know that, right? The angel of death overcame, and we're going to read that later. But what's really interesting about this little bit of scripture here is the next bit that comes. And there's a break there, but this was written this way in the first, so I'm going to read it again. Thus said the Lord, Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. Who's Moshe's firstborn?
Gershom?
Gershom, right? And I will say to thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. This is Moses talking to Pharaoh. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. And so we're talking about killing the firstborn son here, right? That's what Yah's talking about. And it came to pass, verse 24, by the way in the inn, that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. That is so confusing. And this has had rabbis and pastors and everybody talking about it forever. Him, this is like pronouns, right? What are your pronouns? Came to pass, by the way, that Yahweh, all right, so we have Yahweh. We know who Yahweh is. Met him and sought to kill him. Who's him?
Moses.
Some people say Moses.
Gershom?
But what were they just talking about?
Firstborn?
The firstborn, the firstborn, the firstborn. I believe, we're going to get to it, but I'll just tell you now, I believe we're talking about Gershom right here. And sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone, and he cut off the foreskin of her son. Which son? She's got two of them. Doesn't say. Of her son, and cast it at his feet, and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So he let them go, and she said, a bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision. This is so much stuff that happened, and it's vague. It's not quite clear. Who got circumcised? Who is getting ready to be killed? What is going on? This is what I think happened. And again, there are different rabbis who studied this before Christians did, and then Christians who look at this slightly different ways. What was Moses' wife's dad's job?
A Midianite priest.
He was the priest. So he's the high holy man. And he says, you can have my daughter to be your wife. And they have a kid. Their first kid is Gershom. Thought is that the father said, you can have my wife, but that first son is dedicated to my God. Because your firstborn is important in almost all cultures. Firstborn male child is very important. And so for that reason, Moshe did not circumcise his first son. Now, Abraham, way back, was told to circumcise. I mean, we could go there, but circumcision has been a thing amongst Israelites forever. Abraham was told to do it, and it's been coming forward. And the thought is that he didn't circumcise Gershom, his son, and so now they're coming, and then let's go back and look at this. Came to pass, by the way, at the end, that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. He may have been trying to kill Moshe, he may have been trying to kill the firstborn son. In either way, and by him trying to kill him, there's another whole school of thought that he allowed Satan to try and kill him, but he took off his hand of protection so that could happen. Somebody's fixing to die, either Moshe or Gershom, firstborn son. Zipporah sees it, and she circumcises the son. Whose job is it to do that?
Moses.
Moshe, or it's basically a male job to do it. It's not the mom's job. The mom was the daughter of a Midianite priest, but she realized where the power is. She realized what's going on, and she also realizes what's wrong. She knows why this death's fixing to happen. And so she circumcises her son, And then says, surely, do you guys have something different in verse 25? Surely a bloody husband art thou to me. Do you have something different in
A
Scripture?
bridegroom of blood.
What?
A bridegroom of blood.
A bridegroom of blood, and that is more effective. Basically, these are blood rights, and she's not real happy about it. She's not real happy about the fact that she had to circumcise her son. She's probably not real happy about the fact that her husband didn't step up and do what he was supposed to do as a man, even though he told her dad, whatever. And then it says, so he let them go. That's, Yahweh is not killing anymore. But also, it's interesting that at this point, Zipporah and the two boys go home.
Mhm.
They no longer continue on the way with Moshe to Egypt. And we get that later in Exodus 18. We could go there, but we're going long today. In Exodus 18, you read how Moshe goes back to his father-in-law, and his father-in-law is like, here you go, and here's your wife and daughters, and dun-dun-dun-dun, and that goes somewhere. Make a note. We'll talk about it after.
Mhm.
All right. And Yahweh said so that whole scene just happened. It's important to circumcise your sons. When are we supposed to circumcise our sons?
Eighth
Eighth
day.
day.
8th day, or as soon as you can after that, because sometimes exigent circumstances happen. And it was so important that Yah is not going to allow Moshe to be his messenger and to go do this great thing when he's in this grave disobedience to what he's supposed to do. And he's a Levite on top of that. And Moshe and Aaron went, and they gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. Now this is interesting to me because they are captives. They're in bondage. They're slaves in the land of Mitzrayim. And so this has to be somewhat of a clandestine mission. They're sneaking in and they're getting a hold of the elders, and they're having a little secret meeting with the elders under the noses of the Egyptians. And Aaron spake all the words which Yahweh had spoken unto Moshe, and he did the signs in the sight of the people. Did all those things to prove it. And the people believed. And when they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Israel and that he had looked upon their affliction, then they bowed their heads and they worshipped. And afterwards, chapter 5, Moshe and Aaron went in and they told Pharaoh, thus saith Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness. I understand this, Pharaoh. I really do. And Pharaoh said, who is Yahweh that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I don't know Yahweh, neither will I let Israel go. You come here in the name of some guy named Yahweh and tell me to let my people, my slaves go? I don't know this guy, and I'm not letting them go. How's that there, Moshe? And they said, the Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Let us go, we pray thee, 3 days' journey into the desert, and sacrifice unto Yahweh our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence, or with the sword. And the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, said unto them, wherefore do ye, Moshe and Aaron, let the people from their works? Get you under your burdens. So Moshe and Aaron want to get the people not to have to work. He's like, who are you to say these people aren't going to work? And they're going to go take a 3-day vacation? And I also think maybe there was some like general strike action going on after they were told that God was going to save them and preserve them. And so it's like, hey, who are you to get the people not to work? You know, they've all been slacking off the last couple of days. They're all abuzz with this news you got going. You're going to come tell me to let them go, and I'm going to let them go. Ain't going to happen there, Moshe. And the king of Egypt said to them that. And Pharaoh said, behold, the people of the land now are many, and yet ye make them rest from their burdens. See, they're not working. And Pharaoh commanded the same day that the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, ye shall no more give the people straw to make brick, as heretofore, as you have in the past. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. And so they were being delivered. It's kind of like I was thinking when Tony was building cabins, and it's like, here's all the wood, build the cabin, right? The wood's there. Well, they had a certain amount that they had to build of bricks every day. Well, the straw's here, the mud's here, make bricks, all right? You got your daily quota of bricks, you can go home. Well, now they're saying, guess what? You got to go make bricks, you also got to gather your own straw. And we're not going to let the number go down. And the tail of the bricks, that's the number of the bricks that they have to make, which they did make heretofore, ye shall lay upon them. Ye shall not diminish aught thereof, for they be idle. Therefore they cry, saying, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let there be more work laid upon the men, that they may labor therein, and let them not regard vain words. You know what? These people are too lazy. They're sitting around running their jaws too much. They're talking too much about this stuff. We're going to work them twice as hard. They got to produce the same number of bricks, and they got to go get their own straw now instead of us dropping it off by the truckload. And the taskmasters of the people went out, and their officers, and they spake unto the people, saying, thus saith Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go ye, get your straw where you can find it, yet not aught of your work shall be diminished. So the people were scattered abroad throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble, reeds, instead of straw. Think about what this does, because we know as this goes forward about how the people whine in the wilderness. Oh, what did you do? Bring us out here to starve to death? What did you do? Bring us out here to die of thirst? Oh God, I wish we were back in Egypt. So here's Moshe. He shows up and he goes, hey guys, I got this thing. God told me that he's going to save you all from all this bondage, and we're all going to be free, and he's going to take us to the land of milk and honey. And they're like, woohoo, okay, let's do this thing. And then the next thing you know, like their burden is doubled. Who do you think they're blaming? The Egyptian Pharaoh who did that, or Moshe who had this great idea? You know they're blaming Moshe in a lot of ways, right? It's like, we were doing fine until this Yehu showed up and put this magic in your ears. And the taskmasters hastened them, saying, fulfill your works, your daily task, as if there was straw. And the officers of the children of Israel, which Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and demanded, wherefore have you not fulfilled your task in making brick both yesterday and today as heretofore? Here's what an army does, what an occupier does, what an oppressor does. You've got all these Israelites and their slaves. Well, if you look at that verse we just read, they had their own elected representatives that the Egyptians dealt with. They're not going to deal with all the Israelites. They're going to deal with you and you and you. You guys get your people in line. Well, the people aren't in line, so what happens to you and you and you? They get beat. And they get told, hey, you better get your people in line. Same thing happened under Herod, under Roman occupation. Like, you better get this thing in line, or we're going to come down on you and we're going to take away all your benefits. Same thing happened in Nazi era in Europe. They put the Jews in they called them ghettos, in these concentrated areas, and they said, give us some representatives to deal with. And when things didn't go well with the Jews, who got punished? The representatives. And so it makes you turn against your own people if you're not really strong. So these guys get beat. Then the officers of the children of Israel came, and they cried unto Pharaoh, saying, wherefore dealest thou thus with your... Why are you treating us like this? There is no straw given to your servants. And they say to us, make brick, and behold, thy servants are beaten. But the fault is in your people, because you didn't give us straw. But he said, you are idle, you are idle. Therefore you say, let us go and do sacrifice unto Yahweh. Now therefore go and work, for there shall no straw be given you, yet you shall deliver the tale of bricks. So they try to go over their taskmaster's head to the big guy. So one thing is, even though they're slaves, they have access to the Pharaoh. That's kind of interesting. At least their elders do. And the officers of the children of Israel did see that they were in evil case. After it was said, you shall not diminish aught from your bricks of your daily task. And they met Moshe and Aaron, who stood in the way as they came forth from Pharaoh. And they said unto him, Yahweh look upon you and judge, because you have made our savor to be abhorred in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to slay us. They are not real happy with Moses and Aaron, because they just upset the apple cart, and now our life is harder, and I just got beat for it. And I went to complain, and he told me, too bad, go out there and do it. And Moses returned unto Yahweh and said, Yahweh, wherefore hast thou so evil entreated this people? Why is it that thou hast sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, neither hast thou delivered thy people at all. He's kind of like, what's going on here, Father? You told me you were going to release the people. I came because you heard their cries of affliction. I came here and it got worse. And Yahweh said, this is chapter 6, verse 1, last one. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. So what the Father is saying is, I am just setting the conditions, setting the stage to be glorified. Look how bad they're treated. I came and had you make not the offer, the request to let my people go. I hardened his heart so that he'd do harder, and it's just going to make it all the more sweet when we actually go out of here and spoil the Egyptians on our way out. So this is the start of the great Exodus, the freedom of Yah's people from the hand of bondage. We celebrate Passover, which is this whole tale right here, specifically the day they left, but that's coming later in the spring feast. Next week, starting tomorrow, the Torah portion is basically chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9. So if you read through chapter 9 for next week, then when we get together, we'll all have like a frame of reference to talk on. Let's pray.